day, Mom. Good day, everyone. I am Jillian Ispaet, and together with my group mates, we are assigned to discuss about the power and influence in the workplace. But before we proceed to the discussion, please allow me to read the learning objectives of this chapter. So, after reading this chapter, you should be able to first describe the dependence model of power as well as the 5 sources of power in an organization. 2. Discuss the 4 contingencies of power. 3. Explain how people and work units gain power through social networks. 4. Describe 8 types of influence tactics, 3 consequences of influencing others, and 3 contingencies to consider when choosing an influence tactic. And the last one is to identify the organizational conditions and personal characteristics that support organizational politics, as well as the ways to minimize organizational politics. So first, let us define what is power. So power is the capacity of a person, team, or organization to influence others. So power is about having the potential or ability to affect the thoughts, actions, or decisions of other individuals or groups. So for example, kung ikaw ang CEO sa isang company, and as a CEO, you have the capacity to influence the managers or the team and the entire organization, affecting everything from company strategy and financial decisions. Kung ikaw manggod ang isa ka CEO sa isa ka company, you have the control sa tanan. Control sa imong employees, control sa imong sa budgeting, sa kwarta, control kung saan pagpadagan sa isa ka business. And as a CEO, you have the capacity or the ability to affect the thoughts or actions sa imong mga employees or sa mga tao nga na under sa imuha. First, power is not the act of changing someone's attitude or behavior. It is only the potential to do so. So, example of it is, imagine you are the marketing executive in the organization and you are planning an advertising campaign. You also have the power to allocate significant budget intended for the campaign. So as an executive, you have the potential to influence the advertising team, agency, and the campaign strategy. So the way you make authority, the way you communicate and gives direction to the team is the act of exerting power to influence them. Second, power is based on the target's perception that the power holder controls. People might generate power by convincing others that they control something of value, whether or not they actually control the resource. So, people can indeed generate power by convincing others that they have control over a resource or influence. So, for example, is the negotiating a business deal of the 2 companies, whereas Company A generates power by convincing Company B that they control something of value, even if they don't actually intended to share it. So the perception of power is enough to influence the negotiation of the favor. Si Company B man good believes that partnering with Company A would significantly boost their own credibility and market positions. So by that, even if walay intention si Company A to share its workforce with Company B, but they recognize the perceived power nga pwede may laha based on their reputation, is they allow Company B to be partner with them. Remember, you might feel powerful or think you have the power over others, but it is not power unless others believe you have that capacity. So matawag lang siya og power kung ang mismong imong mga members kay magpatuo or mutuo sa imuha. So for example, kung ikaw leader tapos imong mga members ipatuo sa imuha nga kani ang dapat buhaton, ni-follow sila sa imong mga instructions sa ilaha, kana matawag na siya nga power. It is because they believe sa imong capacity nga mulid sa ilaha o sa imong leadership skills. Third, power involves the asymmetric or the unequal dependence of one party on another party. So when one party is more dependent on the other, it can lead to an imbalance of power and influence. So example of it is the employer to employee relationship. So kung asa ang employer kung asa ang employer is na siya control over the employee's job and income, while ang employee is nagadependent sa employer for their financial well-being and job stability. The imbalance of independence highlights the power dynamic in the workplace. So the employer decision man good can significantly affect the employee's life. Maka-create ni siya situation where one party is more dependent on the other that can lead to an unequal power relationship. Pariha sa employer-employer relationship manggod where ang employee is nagadepend siya sa employer bahin sa ilang trabaho, sa ilang sweldo. Kay kung walang employer, dili man pud sila makatrabaho. So mao ni siyang ginatawag nga asymmetric or unequal dependence of one party on another party. Kung asa mas ni-depend ang employee sa iyang employer. Although dependence is the key element of power relationship, we use the phrase asymmetric dependence because the less powerful party still has some degree of power called countervailing power. So, what is countervailing power? So, it is the capacity of a person, team, or organization to keep a powerful person or group in the exchange of relationship. So kung moingon tag countervailing power, it serves as a mechanism to prevent or mitigate the potentially exploitative or unfair use of power by those who hold more dominant positions. So example of it is the small supplier negotiating with a large chain retailer. So, bisan pa man sa kagamay sa supplier compare sa retailer, the supplier holds some degree of power. It's because walay mabuhat ang retailer kung dili muuyon ang supplier. The supplier have the countervailing power because their products are unique and suit after allowing them to negotiate more favorable terms with a retailer or explore other distribution options. So, the countervailing power of the supplier is essential in maintaining a balanced exchange relationship and equitable negotiations in business relationship. Ang less power sa duha is si supplier. So, bisan pag kanang less power siya, still nagyapon siya some degree of power. It's because ang katong retailer is mag-agad raman sa iyaha kung musugot ba siya sa ilang negotiation or dili. So, the last is that power relationship depends on some minimum level of trust. A trust indicates a level of expectation that the more powerful party will deliver their resource. So, trust is a fundamental element in power relationships. It implies a level of expectation that the more powerful party will deliver on their commitments and not abuse their power. So, example of it is the patient or the doctor relationships. So, ang pasyente, nisalig siya sa doktor nga matagaan og solusyon iyang sakit. The patient relies on the doctor's expertise. So, same ra gyapon ni siya sa organization or sa trabahoan. So, kung ikaw nga tag-iya or manager og nakaisalig sa imong mga employees, ang imong mga employees po is magkugi or maghatag og daghang efforts in return sa imong gihatag nga pagsalig sa iyaha. So, useless man ang isa ka relation kung wala ang trust kay lain kayo og permi ka dudahan sa mga butang nga imong pangbuhaton. So, murag walay gana ilihok. So, trust is very important yun kung manarbaho ka sa isa ka organization puhon.
Good day everyone, I am John Mark Ninieza and I am assigned to discuss the 5 sources of power in organization. Number 1 is legitimate power. Legitimate power ay ang kapangyarihan na nagmumula sa isang kasunduan sa loob ng organisasyon na ang mga tao sa tiyak na mga posisyon ay maaaring humiling ng mga tiyak na kilos mula sa iba. Halimbawa ay ang isang manager na may kapangyarihan na mag-utos ng mga trabaho sa kanyang mga tauhan batay sa kanilang mga posisyon sa organisasyon. Kapag ito ay ginagamit ng tama, ito ay nagdudulot ng maayos na koordinasyon ng trabaho sa loob ng kumpanya. Number 2 is reward power. Reward power ay nagmumula sa kakayahan na kontrolin ang pag-allocate ng mga premyo o insentibo na mahalaga sa iba at ang kakayahan na alisin ang mga negatibong parusa. Halimbawa, ang HR manager na may kapangyarihan na magbibigay ng mga bonus o premyo sa mga empleyado. Ito ay isang paraan upang maengganyo ang mga tao na magtrabaho ng mahusay at makamit ang mga organisasyong layunin. Number 3 is coercive power. Coercive power ay ang kakayahan na mag-apply ng parusa. At karamihan sa atin, ang unang pumasok sa isip sa konseptong ito ay ang mga hub manager na nagbabanta ng pagsisanti sa mga empleyado. Halimbawa, kapag isang supervisor ay nagbabanta na sisintahin ang isang empleyado kung hindi ito susunod sa mga alintuntunin ng trabaho. Ang takot sa pagkawala ng trabaho ay maaaring maging isang makapangyarihang puwersa para piliting sumusunod ang mga empleyado sa alituntunin. Number 4 is expert power. Expert power ay ang kapasidad na impluwensyahan ang iba sa pamamagitan ng pagkakaroon ng kaalaman o kasanayan na itinuring ng iba na mahalaga. Halimbawa, ang isang IT specialist na may mataas na antas ng kaalaman sa pagproproseso ng data. Dahil sa kanilang kasanayan, sila ay itinuring na may malalim na kaalaman at kredibilidad sa kanilang field. Ipinagpahayag nila ang kanilang expert power sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng mga payo at solusyon sa mga isyu ng data management. And the last power is referent power. Referent power ay nararamdaman ng mga tao kapag sila ay kinikilala o iniidolo ng iba o kaya ay inirerespeto ng kanilang kapwa. Halimbawa, isang karismatikong leader na kinikilala at iniidolo ng kanyang mga tauhan. Dahil sa kanilang kahanga-hanga at liderato, ang mga tauhan ay mas handa na sundan ang kanilang mga utos at direksyon, hindi dahil sa takot, kundi dahil sa kanilang respeto at pagsunod.
Contingencies of power, nagdetermine siya whether ang power ba daw is converted to influence. There are 4 main contingencies of power, which are substitutability, contingency of power to the availability of alternatives. It refers not only to the other sources that offer the resources, but also to substitution for the resource itself. Nag-refer na siya sa degree of resource or individual nga can be replaced or substitute. Example ani is resource or individual can be easily replaced if the power is less they have. If ang employee cannot be easily replaced, their power is greater. Na company ani nag-declare og substitutability, which is ang Microsoft company nga demonstrate substitutability. Nag-develop sila operating system nga dali ra magamit, and as the result daghan kay competitors ang nawala og control sa ilahang business, which is have been driven out of business. The second main of contingencies of power, which is ang centrality, and it refers to the power holder's importance based on the degree and nature of his or her interdependence with others. People have more power when they have a high centrality. The number of people affected is large and people are quickly affected by their actions. Nag-refer na siya sa degree and nature of interdependence between the power holder and others. High centrality means the power holder is crucial sa ubang tao, and their decision nga maka-apekto in a large number of individuals. Example ani ang head office of the company nga nagbuhat og decision nga maka-affect sa tanan smaller outlets across the country. Centrality is important because it determines how much and how many are affected by the power holder's decision. It can also affect the power holders' ability nga maka-influence sa uban within an organization. In most relationships, there is an interdependence, with the dependent having a counterbalancing power, which power to make sure the other uses their power judiciously or sa tama nila gibuhat. The third main contingencies of power, which is visibility. It refers to the idea that power increases to the extent that persons or work units' competences are known to others. Nag-refer ni siya sa degree which the power holders' actions are observable. If the power holders' actions are visible, then their power is strengthened. Ang visibility pa is important sa factor in the contingencies of power that can affect a leader's ability to influence others. It is related to the awareness of other people in the organization of the leader's powers and position. And it nag-require ni siya leaders consciously nga mag-build og relationship when they don't have natural moments. Consequences of power include increased motivation and job satisfaction. The last part of the main of contingencies of power, which is ang discretion. It refers to the freedom to exercise judgment, and the power increases when people have freedom to use their power to make decisions without referring to a specific role or receiving permission from someone else. Kaya na power to make decision, pwede siya makabuhat og decision without asking. It usually deals with upper and lower management position. It is the ability to follow company protocol. Kani nga power, ang discretion must be used judiciously or sa tamang jud gamiton, as it can also lead to negative consequences if used improperly. And this is all the belong of contingencies of power.
The power of social networks. Social networks are the social structures of individuals of social units that are connected to each other through one or more forms of interdependence. People receive power in social networks through social capital, which is the goodwill and resulting resources shared among members in a social networks. So when we say social network, mao ni siya ang way para makipag-interact sa ubang tao. We used online platform to stay connected with our family and friends, such as Facebook, Twitter, and etc. So naapoy laing types sa social network, which is ang offline network. So mao ni siya ang interaction nato sa mga tao, like atong friends, colleges, sa nga makita ra nato sa palibot. Then through social network pod, we can promote our businesses through social media, and pwede pod ta makabaligya sa atong mga products and spread information about sa atong business. So importante gyud ni siya sa mga naay business para mag-expand pod ang ilang mga professional networks. Social networks potentially enhance and maintain the power of its members through three resources, which are information, visibility, and recent power. Ang information, members receive valuable knowledge more easily and more quickly from fellow network members. So ang visibility, for example, someone asked to recommend someone for valued position, ikaw dayon ang matulo sa members sa network, nakabalo naman sila nga expert na ka ana and ana kay knowledge about ana nga position. Ang different power pod, people tend to gain different power through networking because members of the network identify or at least have a greater trust in each other. Social capital tends to increase with the number of network ties. So, ang social capital kay nag-represent sa trust, cooperation, and resources that result from social connections and relationships. So, nasa'y duha ka types ang social capital, which are the strong ties and the weak ties. Sa strong ties, it is a close-knit relationship which are evident from how often we interact with people and how intensely we share resources with them. For example, sa isa ka community, ang mga neighbors dito is they know and trust each other. So, social capital is abundant kay tungod during sa times of needs kay Ang mga neighbors dito is magtinabangay gud sila and nag-share sila og information sa ubang tao nga kailanganon. So, ang strong social connections and relationships within the neighborhood generate social capital. Strong ties are valuable because they offer resources more quickly and usually more plentifully than are available from weak ties. Meanwhile, sa weak ties, it is social connection or relationship pero dili siya parehas sa strong ties nga naay close interaction with other members. Example, ana is imong colleges and acquaintance sa workplace. Kanang kainda lang nimo sila sa trabaho pero limited lang inyong interactions. Wala mo'y deep personal connection pero despite sa limited intimacy, maka-benefit pud ni siya for expanding your network and accessing new information that might not be available in strong ties alone. So, importante pud ni ang weak ties sa mga job hunting and career development because people with diverse networks tend to be more successful job seekers because they have a wider net to catch new job opportunities. Another influence on social capital is the person's centrality in the network. Network centrality is determined in several ways, including the extent to which you are located between others in the network, how many direct ties you have, and the closeness of these ties. The more central a person is located in the network, the more social capital and therefore more power he or she acquires. Centrality is a helpful measure for identifying key players in a network. Depende sa measure nga gigamit kung betweenness, degree centrality, or closeness ba siya. Ang betweenness is the more betweenness you have, the more pod ang control nimo nga makadistribute og information og other resources sa mga tao nga naa sa imong palibot. Kung degree centrality pod, the number of connection you have to others in the network. Naga-increase ang centrality kay tungod visible ka sa other members sa network. Kung closeness pod, naga-increase pod ang centrality with your closeness to others in the network kay tungod they are affected more quickly and significantly by you. People also gain power by bridging structural holes, linking two or more clusters of people in a network. Example, this bridging holes naghatag siya sa person A og additional power sa network. Tungod pod sa bridging gap, ang person A becomes a broker. Ang broker mo na siya ang naga-connect sa duha ka independent networks nga naga-control sa information nila.
Good day everyone, this is Febe Mones and I am assigned to report influencing others. So what is influence? Influence refers to any behavior attempts to alter someone's attitude or behavior. And there are types of influencing tactics. The silent authority, assertiveness, information control, coalition control, upward appeal, persuasion, ingresation or impression management, and exchange. So first is silent authority. Silent authority influencing power through legitimate power without explicitly referring to that power base. For example, a boss can assign project. So, dili na need niya i-establish ang iyang authority kay kabalo naman ng iyang employees sa iyang legitimate power. Other comply with the request these individuals make because they accept the legitimacy of the position, whether they like or agree with the request or not. Next is assertiveness. Assertiveness actively applying legitimate and coercive power by applying pressure or threats. For example, you ask her more than once to agree with the idea and put a little pressure on her to get her to do what you would like. So, ang assertiveness is more of i-pressure ang imong gusto i-influence na tao or ang imong employee. Information control. Information control explicitly manipulating someone else's access to information for the purpose of changing his or her attitudes and behavior. When we say control, it involves influencing the actions of individuals or systems, enhancing productivity by leveraging resources. And when we say information control naman, it limits access to information, potentially leading to action based on incomplete or false data. For instance, organizations may restrict information about project failures, which can have ethical and legal implications. So, having control or over over information that others need or one puts you in powerful position. Restricting or suppressing certain information can be a tactic to maintain authority or control. Coalition control, forming a group that attempts to influence others by pooling resources and power of its member. So, coalition control is a strategy where employees unite in groups with shared interest to collectively influence decision making or policies within the organization. This helps them to have a stronger, unified voice and increase the likelihood of achieving their goals or addressing workplace concerns. For example, a group of employees forming a coalition to advocate for improved safety measures. If they believe that workplace safety is not up to standard, they can join forces, discuss their concerns, and collectively approach the management to request better safety protocols, training, or equipment. By working together, they increase their chances of convincing the company to make the necessary improvement for a safer work environment. So, coalition control, it is a powerful strategy employed by employees in the workplace to unite for common objectives. By forming alliances, they can effectively influence decision making, policies, or changes that benefit their collective interest. This tactic showcases the importance of teamwork and cooperation in addressing workplace concerns and achieving desired outcomes. Upward appeal, gaining support from one or more people with higher authority or expertise. Upward appeal is a tactic where employees communicate with higher level management to address concerns, propose ideas, and seek support for issues that can benefit both employees and the organization. It aims to influence decision making and drive positive changes through dialogue with higher ranking individuals. For example, when an employee addresses their concerns about the lack of professional development opportunities to their manager, they propose the idea of implementing a training program, seeking support and influence to bring positive changes to the organization's employee development practices. So, upward appeal is a valuable workplace strategy that encourages open communication and collaboration between employees and higher management. It allows employees to address concerns, propose ideas, and seek support for positive changes, ultimately enhancing the workplace and organizational practices. Persuasion. Persuasion, it is using logical arguments, factual evidence, and emotional appeal to convince people of the value of the request. In persuasion, you can use effective communication and reasoning to influence colleagues or superiors in accepting a specific idea or actions. It involves presenting compelling arguments and evidence to convince others to align with one's objectives, fostering collaboration, and achieving workplace goals. So, for example, when an employee wants to introduce a new project management to improve efficiency, they may gather data on the tool's benefits, create a persuasive presentation, and then communicate with the team and superiors to gain support for implementing the new system. Through well-reasoned argument and evidence, they aim to persuade their colleagues that the new tool is beneficial for the team's productivity and should be adopted. So, persuasion, persuasion, it is a vital skill in the workplace that allows individuals to effectively communicate and influence others to adopt specific ideas or actions. It plays a significant role in achieving organizational goals and promoting cooperation among team members. Ingratiation or impression management. Attempting to increase liking by or perceived similarity to some targeted person. So, it is where individuals deliberately shape their image and behavior to create a positive impression. This involves building relationships, gaining trust, and winning favor through acts of kindness and flattery with the goal of improving relationships, gaining support, and enhancing one's reputation within the organization. For instance, when an employer regularly compliments their supervisors, listens attentively to their ideas, and offers to help with tasks even beyond their usual responsibilities. By doing so, the employees aims to create a positive impression and build a stronger rapport with their boss, with the hope of receiving more opportunities, recognition, or support in return. So, ingratiation or impression management, it is a workplace strategy where individuals deliberately cultivate a positive image by building relationships and winning favor through kindness and flattery. And lastly, exchange. Promising benefit or resources in exchange for the target person's compliance. So, exchange, it involves offering something valuable to others in return for their cooperation or support. It's a form of reciprocating where individuals provide help or resources to colleagues, superiors, or subordinates in exchange for assistance in achieving their own work-related goals. So, exchange, these tactics promotes mutual benefit and collaboration to achieve objectives.
And contingencies of influence tactics. Faced with a variety of influence strategies, you are probably asking which one are best. The best way to answer this question is to describe how people react when others try to influence them. First is resistance. Resistance occurs when people or work units oppose the behavior desired by the influencer by refusing, arguing, or delaying engagement in the behavior. So here the example of resistance. Imagine a manager trying to implement a new company policy that requires all employees to work on Saturdays. So some employees might refuse to work on Saturdays, argue that disrupts their work life balance and personal commitments. Others may delay their engagement by taking longer breaks during the week to compensate for work on Saturdays. So, in this case, the employees are resisting the desired behavior of working on the Saturdays because they have different values and priorities. Compliance occurs when people are motivated to implement the influencer request at a minimal level of effort and for purely instrumental reason without external sources to prompt the desired behavior. Compliance would not occur.
Compliance is typically involves people following a request of instruction. So the example of compliance is an employee at a company who received a request from their supervisor to complete a task by the end of the day. The employee may not have a strong internal motivation or passion for the task, but they comply with the request because they want to avoid reprimands, maintain job security, and receive their monthly. In this case, compliance occurs primarily for the instrumental reason, job security, or financial incentive, and the minimal level of effort is put into the task to meet the request without the external influence of the supervisor request and the potential consequences. The employee might not have completed the task. Commitment is the strongest outcome of influence, whereby people identify with the influencer request and are highly motivated to implement it even when extrinsic sources of motivation are no longer present. Of commitment. Company CEO is passionate about environmental sustainability and influence the entire organization to embrace initiative. Ang CEO, gina-encourage niya ang employee to participate in sustainability project and leads by example and provide resources for employee to learn about eco-friendly practices. Soft influence tactics such as friendly persuasion and subtle ingratiation are more acceptable than hard tactics such as upward appeal and assertiveness. However, the most appropriate influence tactic also depends on the influencer power base, whether the person being influenced is higher, lower, or all the same time level organization and personal, organizational, and cultural values regarding influence behavior. From the word tactic is carefully planned to achieve a specific end. So, example sa tactic influence is suppose a manager is a higher level wants to persuade a subordinate a lower level to take on a new project. They have expert power because of their knowledge. So in a culture that values collaboration and consensus building, they might choose a soft tactic like persuasion, emphasize the benefits of the project for the team. However, in a more authoritarian culture, they might use a harder tactic like asserting their authority. The choice of tactics should align with the specific context and dynamic play with the organization, its culture.
Influence and organizational politics. Organizational tactics refers to influence tactics that others perceive to be self-saving behavior at the expense of others and sometimes contrary to the interests of the organization. It is more common when ambiguous decisions allocate scarce resources and when organization tolerates reward politics behavior. Individuals with higher need for personal power and strong Machiavellian values have higher propensity to use politic tactics. So ang organizational tactics is kanang individual nga batasan sa usa ka miyembro sa organization, which is usahay dili uyon sa kabubuton sa organization, kumbaga sukwahi sa organization, naay pagduha-duha ug dili sure sa ilang mga decision, which nakakos og trouble sa pag-release og mga resources. Pag kini napasagdan lang sa organization, which means ginaalaw sa organization nga kung unsay buhaton sa ka membro sa organization nga taas og posisyon, okay lang gamiton ang political tactics. Organizational politics can be minimized by providing clear rules for resources allocation, establishing a free flow or information, using education and involvement during organization change, supporting team norms and corporate culture that discourage dysfunctional politics, and having leaders who model organization citizens rather than political CV. So ang sabot ato is sample ato is ang organizational politics hapsay ang usa ka organization pinaagi sa tama nga pamalakad sa paghatag og mga supply or serbisyo sa mga tao, like example sa mga munisipyo, barangay, ana paghatag og mga impormasyon sa pagbag-o sa organization. Suportahan ang kaayuhan sa kadaghanan pinaagi sa pag-uyon sa maayong binuhatan kaya sa pag-uyon sa politikang way o kabag-uhan.